Welcome, everyone. This is The Car Show. My name's Doug Stewart. This is my friend Glenn Packman.
Hello.
I have known Glenn for 35 years. 35 years?
7, actually, yeah.
Okay.
Well, 35 because who counts the pandemic, right?
That's right. That's right. And I'll tell you, one of the first things I noticed about Glenn Packman was he had this really pretty blue Volkswagen Golf with the license plate Das Car, and car was spelled with a K.
Right.
So that's and we have enjoyed talking about cars ever since. So that's what we're going to do here.
Right.
Glenn?
And this is Doug Stewart, who, like Doug said, we've known each other for 37 years. He did not drive a blue Volkswagen at that point in time, but I think you had the Dodge Shadow maybe at that point, the silver one?
I had the Omni.
Oh, yeah, the Omni. Oh, okay. All right. Are we allowed to even talk about it?
Yeah. No, the Omni was fine.
Yeah. But similar love for cars, and it's just something that we touch on pretty much every conversation. Every time we're just yakking, the car things come up, and well, here we are.
Yes. So one of the things that happened today, actually, we're taping on Thursday the 17th, is the press previews at the LA Auto Show.
Indeed.
So 3,000 miles away from us, but some interesting cars out there. For the first time in a long time, Glenn, I like the looks of the Prius.
Yeah. Kind of the first time ever for me, but yeah. Actually, there was circa like 2005 that Prius was okay. The one that Claire drove away and at the end of 6 Feet Under. That was kind of sharp, but never have I ever said, wow, the Prius is really a nice looking car until today. So
yeah. The last gen, I get behind one and I go, it looks like a spaceship and not a very nice looking spaceship.
No. It's like, it just hurts. It hurts to look at.
And they tend to be in searing colors too.
Yeah. Well, they did do the searing colors for the release in LA, but the new one it's beautiful. I kind of want to get a hold of Toyota and go, well, who did you fire or who did you hire? Because somebody's making the difference there. So.
Right. And it's all their cars. If you look at the new Corolla, right? It's a sharp looking car. The Crown, their new Avalon replacement, it is a unique design, but I like it. I like the front ends. I like I like how it looks. It has substance to it.
Right.
Whether or not people are gonna buy a sedan in this current market, I don't know.
What I was taking a look at design-wise, at least from the exterior, is that I noticed that the hood and the windshield are like one continuous line on this car. It's got to be really, really aerodynamic to that end. Yeah. I don't know what that's going to do for visibility, because that makes a really, really long windshield in front of the driver, but it's interesting. It is a little chubby if you look at it directly from the back end. If you take just the back end view, it looks a little chunky, but that just might be the photos too. But other than that, I mean, it's a gorgeous car. They shaped it beautifully. And they took in they have the BZ coming up, which is another electric. Some hints from that, although the BZ is a little bit more chiseled, a lot more chiseled, those creasy lines and whatnot, but not a bad looking car either. But the Prius, really pretty, Yeah. My thing about Toyota, and this is coming from a former Toyota owner, and apologies to Toyota owners out there, is that Toyota tends to go for kind of an aggressively uneventful driving experience. They make a tremendous car, no doubt. I mean, they're really reliable. But you never get in a Toyota for the excitement factor, with a couple key exceptions, and that's kind of their genre, their oeuvre. I'm just wondering if they're going to beef up the exterior styling, if maybe they're going to get more on board with the dynamics of the car. We'll see.
It's worked for them. They they sell everyone they make, and they last for a long time.
Well, to quote to quote someone really great, this guy I know named Doug Stewart, Toyota builds cars for people who don't really want to think about driving that much. And that's okay, because most people don't really want to think about it. You know, they just want really reliable transportation that'll get them from point A to point B. And cars like Toyota and Honda are built exactly for that. You know, me, I enjoy having a little bit more fun behind the wheel.
There's a new Subaru Impreza.
Yeah.
I can't really tell it from the current Subaru Impreza.
I was going to say the same exact thing. Wow, more of the same.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a terrible thing. I mean,
no, they're quirky.
Yeah.
Which people like in a car.
Yep. I'm going to say that each iteration of this car tends to be a little bit bigger than the last. And in this one, they're starting to get to some dimensions, and it just, I don't know, it seems a little bit, I don't know, I don't know what I'm trying to say. The looks of the car just seem a little heavy suddenly, a little wider, just, I don't know.
I don't disagree with you, but I think that they have to serve two masters when they design the Impreza. They have to make the Impreza, and they have to think about the Crosstrek. And
Right.
and so when you see them in the occasions when you have them both sitting at a light, and it's really interesting to kind of compare and contrast, and what that visual heft does to the Crosstrek, what the little bit higher does. It's interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing the new Crosstrek when that comes out, because I think that will kind of coalesce all those pieces that don't feel like they necessarily work on the Impreza.
Yeah, it's the proportions for me. When they seem to get a little bit larger, wider, heavier, it just seems to be pushing the car into a different area, at least visually for me. But I'm going to reserve judgment till I see one up close, because honestly, it looks so much like the current one that, it's maybe just impossible to tell them apart, but we'll see.
The design's been out for a little while. The pictures have been around. The Iconic 6, which is I like everything from the B-pillar foam.
I was just going to say the same thing. You're doing so well on that car, and then you hit the C-pillar, and it all just kind of, I said the same thing about the Dodge Caliber years ago.
Yeah.
I really liked the front end of the Dodge Caliber until you got to the middle of the car. And then it was like they fired the design team and brought in new guys, because they didn't meld. I think that this car is going to be viewed like the Infiniti J30 from the 1990s.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
Yeah, where really pretty car, but then what's going on with the trunk?
Did you see the pictures of the Porsche Dakar?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. When I'm looking for a high-speed off-roader, I don't know if I'm going for a Porsche.
And it's like, I want to be able to go out and kill a stag, tie it to the top of my car, but I don't want to be late for my date, because it's just it's interesting. I would still, I would love to drive one, just to say that I drove one. And I mean, it's a Porsche, so it's always going to be a driving experience. But it's just, we're mixing our metaphors on that one. It just
new Hondas, Glenn.
Yeah.
It's like Honda went through and redesigned every damn one of their cars.
Right.
You know why? God.
You know why? Because they heard me bitching about it for the past 5 years. I'm serious. Every time I get up close to like the last generation Civic, all I can think of is some designer going, "Hey guys, let's slap on a fake plastic vent right here that looks exactly like a fake plastic vent." It just, I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. I don't know what they were thinking. There was so much that Honda was chucking at these cars, and it just, I really don't know what they were going for. And it's a shame, because Honda builds a hell of a car. There are people that are completely devoted to Hondas, but I haven't been into their design aesthetic. But the new Honda Accord, I mean, come on,
Beautiful.
gorgeous, gorgeous.
I did like the last gen. It was too
Yeah, it was okay.
too busy in the front.
Yep.
A little bit too much going on in the back,
Right.
but it had nice lines. It had nice work. I like how it sat. You know, I thought it was sharp. This goes above,
Yeah, way beyond.
I think we're going to move on to segment 2 here. So I wanted to talk to you, Glenn, about what's in a name of a car and how the car buying public reacts to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to give a couple examples. You have a car that has a strong fan base or has a reputation or a history. And let's just take the Ford Thunderbird. The Ford Thunderbird went into many iterations. It was a little 2-seater. It was a 4-seater. It was an executive, coupe. It was a big Luxo barge, and then it was, downsized in the 70s and sold a ton of them. And and then you just kind of keep rolling along, and then they stop making it, and then Ford comes out. We're going to bring the Thunderbird back.
Right.
And people are like, oh, cool, Thunderbird's back, right? And then they come out with what they came out with.
Right.
Which some people love.
Yep.
But you build this expectation, and I don't know who's wrong here, the American public or the car buying public or the manufacturers, that they build this expectation of a vehicle, and then they come out with something new that's very different from that, or doesn't, or just is moving to the next level, because cars have to evolve, and then people don't like it, and I don't know who's wrong here, who's right.
Right. I mean, it's one of those advertising basics that whenever you come up with a brand and names within the brand, you're trying to go for an identity. And American automakers, or at least American rooted automakers, like you mentioned, Ford, are really notorious for not sticking on brand with some of their names. Like the Japanese introduced the Corolla, and the Corolla has always been a Corolla. Now it's gotten bigger and a little bit more luxe over the period of time, but the Corolla is still relatively basic transportation. It's never going to be a luxury car.
You can draw a through line from the ones that we remember when we were kids, that were some of the first in the United States, to the one today. There is a clear through line. Yeah.
Right, exactly. You do see sometimes where a line drifts, and I'm going to bring up the BMW 3 Series as an example of that, because that used to be a very compact, very tight little car, and it's just gotten bigger and bigger and more luxurious over time. BMW compensated by introducing the 2 Series, which kind of pulls us back to the old, the 3 of the old days. It's a little bit more forgivable because that's just sort of the natural progression of the car. Yeah, but I mean, just what if Toyota decided to come out with the new Prius and it's a big, it's a minivan? It just don't. You have to keep your identities in check. And sometimes the American car makers just, I'm sorry, the Mustang 2 was such an egregious error. It was a Pinto, and they took the name of like one of the most classic, iconic lines in their line, and they kind of destroyed it for many years,
But to that point, I don't disagree with the Mustang 2 being not a good car.
No.
They sold a lot of them, and they kept the brand alive.
Yeah.
That bridged from the 1974, it's the last of the original size Mustangs, 73 to 79 when the Fox body ones come out, and it fits it. It's a piece that fits there, that anchors one end or the other. So I could. Another one is the Jeep Cherokee.
Yeah.
I had a Cherokee. I liked it. I looked good in the Cherokee. The name is problematic. So I can understand why, when they got rid of that Cherokee, that kind of first, second generation Cherokee, they renamed it the Liberty,
Mhm.
and I think, and then when they come back, when they say, well, we're going to bring the Cherokee back, the people are like, oh yeah, great, Cherokee. Why don't you just make the old one? Well, no, you can't do that because it needs side impact, airbags, and it needs, different crush protection. It needs, 20 other things that you're just not going to get out of car, design that dates back to the early 80s,
Right.
So this is where I think that the consumers are sometimes unrealistic in what
Yep.
what they're expecting out of the vehicle.
True.
I remember in the early 80s when I think it's the Jeep CJ5,
Mhm.
had been on the market for years and years and years and years. And they come out with the rectangle style headlights on the Jeep, and some guy, I remember, sued Jeep because he didn't want them to stop making the CJ5. Like at some point, the car has to evolve and go and move on.
Yep.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. It flummoxes me
Yeah.
to no
I
end.
was bashing Ford for the Mustang. When did they release the new, when they went back to the original sort of design aesthetic in the mid 2000s, I'm going to say
2005. Yeah.
2005. That's what I was thinking. Oh, better than I thought. The 2005 Mustang was returned to its roots, which I thought was smart. And subsequent, generations of the Mustang have held to the fastback styling and have all been attractive cars. It's ironic because they're going to introduce the new one, and I think they deliberately tried to pull in some elements from the Mach-E, which is not a Mustang, but they slapped the Mustang name on it to attract some attention to the car.
Which it did.
Okay. It did.
It did.
And it's a great car. Don't get me wrong. It's not a Mustang, but it's a great car. That said, I want to shake somebody's hand at Ford because what they did with the Bronco just recently was so smart. I mean,
yeah, dead solid, perfect. Yeah.
I mean, the Bronco is so iconic, and you would think, well, who wants to drive something that really screams, OJ in 1980, whatever. But the new full-size Bronco is really, really sharp. And to increase the market share, then they came out with the Bronco Sport, which is a smaller version, much more affordable that a lot of people can get into. And it's sharp. I mean, the exterior styling on that car is dynamite. It's blocky and solid looking, and it just, it looks like $1 million and doesn't cost it. So to see that smart use of the name.
Right. And I don't think you hear a lot of people like, where's the one with the old Bronco? I want the old Bronco.
Right. Yeah. Well, the old Bronco is so, I mean, the DNA is so there that, no one's going to say, oh, I miss the old Bronco, the bottom line with old cars is that they've got old technology and we need to weave the new in. So, but I like when they pull through actual DNA from one car to another, from one generation to the next, because then there's just this natural trickle down. When you suddenly come out with something completely different and brand new with the same name, you're losing people, I think.
Yeah.
I did an internet search for new Hondas for 2024 to bone up on the conversation, and a news article comes up that says Honda Classic has new name for 2024, and I thought, they're going to rename the Civic or what? Why would they do that? It was a golf tournament that has it's the Honda Classic. And I'm like, oh. Which shows our viewing public exactly how much I know about golf, which is, none. A hole in none. Yeah.
A hole in none.
A hole in none. Right. Sorry.
Setting aside my illustrious career in the car rental industry where I bought a lot of cars, I don't know of anyone who has bought more new cars than you. I think a lot of people don't know how to go about this.
Sure.
And I think that, so here's when somebody says, well, Doug, you know a lot about cars. What should I do? Okay. So these are my list. Okay. Other people may have different lists. So my first thing is do your research. Figure out what you need in a car, what you want in a car, and what cars have those features.
Right.
And be realistic about it. Because I think there's a lot of people who buy, a big honking F-150 crew cab, because they're going with their trailer that they might buy in the future 2 weeks a year.
Right.
And you have 50 other weeks that you have to park that thing in a parking space. My second thing is test drive a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Go out there and sit in them, and at least sit in them. And a place like CarMax is really good for this because you can you can sit in a whole bunch of late model cars and just instantly, we did this with my mother, sat her in the car and she immediately said, I can't see out of it. I don't like it. Ooh,
Right.
Next car. Right. Drive at least 3 cars. I mean, at least 3 cars. And sit there and say, okay, I like this. I don't like that. I wish I had better acceleration. I think I'm going to kill myself with this acceleration. Whatever. The market right now is crazy. You're not seeing deals out there. So that may change over the next year or so. But what you need to know is what that MSRP, the manufacturer's suggested retail price, is, and you can get that in a lot of places. Kelley Blue Book, Edmunds, just a lot of different places.
If you do enough digging, you can find out what the dealer has paid for a car, and that gives you a baseline to go from. Now, the thing about that is people think, okay, so the dealer spent $30,000 to get this car on the lot. I'm going to buy it for $30,000. Well, that's not being terribly fair. None of us like car dealers. We, who says, oh man, I love car dealers. They're just so much fun. They do try. They've been trying to make car buying a better experience. But at the end of the day, these are salespeople, and they make their life on, their living on sales. They do have to have some sort of markup off of what they pay for. Right now, you're going to see a huge markup off of what they pay for because there's just not a lot of inventory, and that's all pandemic related. But you can find periods of time in the car market where it's saturated and you're not going to spend a lot over what they've paid for the car. If a certain model has a glut on the lot, which has happened, you might pay under that because they're just losing money having that car sit on the lot. So it doesn't happen a lot, and it's usually very unpopular models. The ones that just aren't selling well. But if you're being really pragmatic, that's the time to buy that car. Just look for that amount. And then there are websites that can tell you what the realistic range is to pay for this car too. Just look that up and find out, okay, here's the window of what I should be paying for the car equipped the way that I want. And that's what the market is saying right now.
There are pricing services that can help in this process.
Absolutely.
And I think by and large, they're free. And just Google, use the new car pricing service, and you'll find a bunch of them. And that will help you get the more knowledge you have going into it. Go to a credit union. This is my advice. Go to a credit union. Great rates, good service, that type of thing like that, and get pre-approved for a certain amount. And you say, okay, I'm pre-approved for $20,000, $25,000, whatever, and so what you're going to pay for your money, and that's so you're going to buy a car that's below that line, right? And what that allows you to do is when you're sitting at the dealer and you're sitting in the, once the salesman has moved you to the next guy, that they're not selling you their own financing deal,
right?
Which they're going to make a lot of money on.
Right. That being said, if you do have approved financing, they may be the ones to say, what is your approved financing? Maybe we can do better than that, in which case they are actually saving you money.
The next thing is don't be afraid to walk away from a deal. Don't, you're not, you are not bound until you sign something. You're not bound to it, right? You can walk out of there. Some unscrupulous dealers will, try and keep your keys for your trade-in and stuff like that, which is why you don't you negotiate the deal for the car, and then you talk about trade-in or down payments or whatever, that you want the deal for the car done. I mean, so you really have to think about it in like steps. You get your financing, you negotiate the price of the car, then you talk a trade-in if that's what you want to do, or you're going to bring this amount to the table or whatever.
Right.
Um,
If I may add, similarly, if a car is subject to cash back or rebate of some kind or another, when you're negotiating the price, tell the person that you're negotiating with that you don't even want to talk about the rebate until you have your deal done. Because the dealer doesn't pay that rebate, the corporation does. But a dealer is going to try to weave that into what you're paying for the car. Tell them to remove it until you're done talking, because that's gravy for you. And I'm telling you right now, there's going to be a lot of car dealers, the dealers who will try to bring that into the negotiation process. Don't allow them to do so. And if they get stubborn about it, just tell them that you're going to go somewhere else. You'll see them back down on it, but that's money for you. It's not money for them.
Avoid dealer profit centers.
Mm.
Undercoating.
Yes.
In etching and hydropneumatic sun visors and premium air in the tires and all that stuff is
right.
Hi, here's the price of it. Here's the markup.
Right.
Glenn,
yes,
you've come to the end of our show. We're gonna try and do this monthly.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you have comments, stuff you'd like us to cover, stuff you think that we shouldn't cover, if you're on the YouTube page, leave the comments down below. Subscribe. So this was a lot of fun. I appreciate you taking the time, Glenn.
Very welcome. Yeah, if you like this, let us know. If you don't, then just stay away from the internet. It's just
that should work. Yeah, because who does anything on the internet this week?
Who needs the internet?
Right.